Hello, we are the anchors of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we discuss the queer headlines. Despite opposition, the Broward School Board passed resolutions recognizing LGBTQ History Month, Pride Month, and National Day of Silence amid heated debate.
Delaware Senator Sarah McBride, the first transgender state senator, has won the Democratic nomination for Congress. This positions her to become the first transgender U.S. Congress member.
Strict voter ID laws in multiple states could disenfranchise over 210,000 transgender Americans in November. States like Kansas and Georgia are heavily impacted.
A federal judge ruled that transgender girls Parker Terrell and Iris Turmel can continue playing on girls' sports teams while challenging a discriminatory new law.
Scholastic's Read with Pride guide urges teachers to include LGBTQ books in curricula, supporting diverse identities and mental health through inclusive literature.
Good evening, all. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily evening television news broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels. We are proud to announce that YouTube has recognized Queer News Tonight, certified by analytics company vidIQ, that we now have more than 9.5 million views. Thanks for that. More than 500,000 of you have watched this show in the last 60 days alone. Thanks again. It is Thursday, September 12th, 2024. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in queer news, you will see it and hear it.
HOTspots Magazine Happening Out Television Network is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the queer community. Our mission is to support the 11 pillars of our LGBTQ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ non-profit media companies in America, HOTspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
In 2024, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the queer and broader community.
All right, everyone, let's meet tonight's awesome anchors here at Queer News Tonight. Let's begin by welcoming anchor Christopher Barnhill. Christopher is a native of Washington, D.C., an HIV activist, and a community leader. If there's one thing you must know about him, listen to this. Brandy Norwood is his queen. Yes. Christopher, the Ujima Men's Collective's Aging with Grace and Dignity, that is happening on September 17th. What's going on with that?
Well, sure. This is one of our community conversations that we have typically in the fall time. So this one is Aging with Grace and Dignity. I will be moderating this session.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking with a lot of members of the community who are over the age of 50, just trying to get their perspective on life and how it is for them, because I think it's important that their voices are constantly a part of the conversation, and I want to make sure that they are celebrated and honored for all of the hard work that they do in the community. They often go as unsung heroes, and I kind of want to know more about them and know how we can support them, especially in this upcoming election and the issues that they would like to be heard on. And so come on out. It's at the YMCA on Sistrunk.
That's awesome.
To the elder at the table, we thank you.
It's a great lineup, too. I saw the lineup. It's incredible. Thanks for doing that. Next, let's welcome anchor Buddy Frey. A longtime South Florida resident, he supports many of our local nonprofit organizations, such as Julian's Fountain of Youth and the Stonewall National Library Museum, among so many other things you do, buddy.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All I really have to say today is please, people,
Yes.
vote. Do your homework. Pay attention to the politics and not the personalities. And vote. Check your voter registration, because right now clock is ticking on whether you can register. So depending upon what city and state you're in, the clock is ticking. So pay attention.
Yes.
Well said. Thank you for that. Next, let's welcome Nico Cales. He is the passionate learner and leader, and he loves connecting with people, exploring new places, and creating meaningful memories. I love that. Nico is currently pursuing an MBA in marketing. That sounds awesome. What's going on, Nico?
Nothing much. I actually just got back from Spain. I went on a cruise with, shout out Virgin Voyages. Not sponsored. The Scarlet Lady.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you're so right. And then we got back out of from Barcelona, and we went to Sitges. I was there for Bear Week, which was extremely on point, considering I ate everything on the cruise. So I was ready for Bear Week.
I love it. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I want to hear stories after. Let's welcome Gregg Shapiro, an inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 2 short story collections and 7 books of poetry. He's also an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and reviews run in a variety of print and online publications. Hey, Gregg, what's up?
Just happy to be here. Happy to still be breathing.
Yes.
Sitting upright. So
Well
just
said.
happy.
And vote.
And vote. Vote! And now, let's welcome our anchor, Dr. Julio Capo, Jr.,
That's me.
a board member of the Stonewall National Museum, Archives, and Library. He's a history professor at Florida International University and the author of the book, Welcome to Fairyland, Queer Miami Before 1940. Julio, International Coastal Cleanup Day will be celebrated at the Vizcaya Museum and Gardens on September 21st. Tell us what's happening.
I mean, Vizcaya is killing it. They're doing such amazing work, community-based work, and this is a great opportunity to go work with nonprofits who are cleaning up the environment. Check it out, and check out all of the current programming at Vizcaya and all the other great cultural institutions nearby. So much good stuff going on. All right, we are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for Thursday, September 12th, 2024. First this evening, let's queer up the world view. Queer News Tonight will broadcast show from Munich's Gay Oktoberfest, September 17th to 26th. Queer News Tonight, the leading LGBTQ television news, is set to continue its groundbreaking coverage with a 2-week broadcast from Europe starting next week on September 17th. One of the highlights of the broadcast is Munich's Gay Oktoberfest. This special broadcast will also include Bavaria's fairy tale-like Neuschwanstein Castle. That's the inspiration for Cinderella's castle at Disney World. Austria's famous Sound of Music Mountain, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, and the Italian Alps in Bolzano. The small Italian town is known for the beautiful blend of Northern European and Mediterranean influences, offering picturesque trails along the Adige River and rich cultural exchanges. Tune in for 2 weeks of exciting and inclusive coverage. Next, let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Despite conservative pushback, Broward County schools vote to recognize LGBTQ months. In a tense meeting, the Broward School Board voted 6-3 to approve 96 resolutions, including 3 recognizing queer events. Despite conservative opposition, the resolutions honor LGBTQ History Month in October, National Day of Silence in April, and Pride Month in June. These resolutions face the most scrutiny, delaying the approval of the full list, which also includes National School Lunch Week and Autism Awareness Month. The South Florida Sun-Sentinel Scott Travis reports that these LGBTQ-related recognitions drew significant attention, reflecting ongoing cultural battles over queer rights in education. to say the least, right? That is like, talk about the culture wars kind of bleeding into every aspect of our lives every day. But also kudos to Broward County that stands alone here. I mean, that is, other counties, Miami-Dade, by the way, take a page from the work and it takes it takes us, right, to kind of show up, make sure that we're pushing them in the right direction, right? These things don't just happen, right? They're pushed to make them happen. It's so much easier for them just to say, let's not do it again this year, right? We have to kind of voice our opinions here.
And we have to remind them of our financial.
That's right.
Our financial stability and the number of jobs that we take in this county. And we also have to remind them of the billions of dollars that we bring in tourism through Wilton Manors and all the other, just South Florida in general.
Yeah.
But also it's very important, that the youth of today can see themselves in depicted in these stories, in the curriculum, being celebrated and honored. I like their straight peers. I know growing up in Washington, D.C., going to school, we didn't have characters that said it was okay to be gay. We had tragedy. I remember the Matthew Shepard had just been murdered right when I started high school. So those things, stories like that, unfortunately, that was tragic, but stories that talks about great things that we've done and how we have pioneered a lot of things is important for our youth, not just LGBTQs, but all youth.
Well, does anyone else think this sounds like the decline and fall of DeSantis and Moms for Lavatories? Is it possible? I don't want to get overly happy about this because, they kind of just wait in the wings, waiting to pull the rug out from under us. But it does feel like a step in a positive direction.
And keep in mind, in the last round of elections, there were a dozen or more Moms for Liberty candidates.
Lavatories.
And only 3 of them won.
Right.
Yeah, the theme of the month is going to be vote, and we can make sure our presence is secure.
Yeah.
But to Gregg's point too, when these things happen, we celebrate them because we can't just always be like, oh, everything's in declension when
No, that's my point.
You're right. You're right. It's a good point.
We have to remind ourselves of the victories that we have.
No doubt.
So next, let's queer up politics. Sarah McBride wins primary, moving closer to becoming the first trans member of Congress. Delaware State Senator Sarah McBride secured the Democratic nomination for the state's lone U.S. House seat on Tuesday, setting her up to potentially become the first transgender member of Congress. McBride, the nation's first transgender state senator, garnered an impressive 80% of the vote, defeating Earl Cooper and Elias Weir. During her election night speech in Newcastle, McBride said, "While tonight we celebrate our victory in the primary, we all know that our work is far from over." She emphasized the stakes of the November election, citing the threat posed by MAGA extremists in the Project 2025 agenda. McBride is now the frontrunner in Delaware's heavily Democratic district to replace Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester, who is running for Senate. She will face Republican John Wayland III, a retired police officer, in November. Queer advocacy groups have lauded McBride's win. Anise Parker, president of the LGBTQ Victory Fund, praised her candidacy, stating, "Nobody is more qualified than Sarah to represent the values of Delaware in Congress." Kelly Robinson of the Human Rights Campaign commended McBride's connection with her constituents. With a legislative record that includes expanding paid family leave and Medicare, McBride's congressional priorities focus on health care access, reproductive rights, and wage increases. If elected, McBride would continue to break barriers and serve as a trailblazer for transgender representation in the United States politics. Again, this is, I'm thrilled that a transgender woman is going to be the first to break the barrier, but I think what's important is that she's looking at not just being transgender, she's looking at being an American, and she's looking at her constituency as a whole, rather than going you and us like so many MAGA extremists are looking at. So I applaud her, and I hope that, Delaware is wise enough to vote for her as candidate, and that she maintains her "we're all an American regardless of who we are, our ethnic background, our sexual identity, our age, or anything else." So I welcome her with very proudly.
Yeah, I'm excited for McBride as well because she is definitely making history as we speak. And the fact that she is not only it's just her being transgender, but like her aligning with the values and, reproductive rights and wage increases. I think it's important that they got a really good representative and they did. So
It's about values, consistency and values.
That's what the LGBTQ agenda is, right? Like that is like, it's access to healthcare, it's better education, it's higher wages. Like, I mean, like they, when you hear the kind of conservative talking points, you would think that it's like, I don't know, like Darth Vader somewhere and like that. But like that is like, this is like, these are real issues and like kind of just grounded in ideas of equity, right? Like, and that is redistribution of what some things can and cannot, like, that education is a right, that healthcare is a right, right? I love that this story, to me, just like everyone here has said, is just, it brings me joy. 80% also is a great number.
That is a good number.
I mean, come on, girl.
Yeah, there's no second chance guessing that one. But, yeah.
Good old Delaware, longtime home of President Joe Biden and the site of the Mid-Atlantic region's gay mecca, Rehoboth Beach. Keep up the good work, y'all.
All right, next let's queer up trans rights. Voter ID laws could prevent transgender Americans from voting. According to a new report by the Williams Institute, strict voter identification laws in several states could disenfranchise over 210,000 transgender Americans in the upcoming November elections. These individuals who lack identity documents that match their gender face challenges in states that require in-person voting and rigid photo ID policies. Among the hardest hit states are Kansas, Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, and Georgia, where nearly 91,300 transgender voters are at risk of being excluded from casting ballots due to stringent photo ID requirements. Voters without proper identification must vote provisionally, but many states require submitting an ID after Election Day for the vote to count. Jody L. Harmon, the report's co-author, says voter ID laws can create a unique barrier to voting for a substantial number of transgender people. States such as Texas and Florida add to the difficulty by preventing transgender individuals from updating gender markers on key documents. Despite these barriers, LGBTQ voters remain highly motivated, with the March survey from GLAAD showing 83% of respondents definitely planning to vote. This is nothing but the same old playbook: voter disenfranchisement, voter suppression. This is something that has been going on since the history of voting. I think that an ID is maybe important to verify who you are, but checking on if they're male or female has nothing to do with casting a ballot and casting a vote. It's just nothing but another way to just disenfranchise tax-paying citizens, by the way, from exercising their right to vote. I mean, I'm sure this will be struck down I'm sure this can be.
Well said. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There's no unclear terms. This is disenfranchisement. And there's such a long history. I love how you put it that way. And I mean, I'm trying to find the kind of silver lining in all of this. And that last part where they're like, well, the people are determined to vote. And that gives me a kind of glimmer of hope that is like, you can't, and hopefully some of these kind of things will get struck down. But that is until then, you show, like, I mean, I remember when I first moved to Massachusetts, I lived in Massachusetts for 10 years, having grown up in Florida. I showed them my ID and they all looked at me like I was nuts. Right? Like that is, I mean, also I'm nuts, but like, but like that is, there's certain stories and they tend to be, like most of them are former Confederate states. Like there's lots of kind of associations with like disenfranchisement and voting today that continues and persists. And you could see remnants of it in these kinds of laws that now are transphobic. And I mean, it's just...
You wouldn't see it in Massachusetts, though.
Massachusetts looked at me like I was nuts. And I was like, look, an ID. But,
when it's fighting too with just over 50 days left until the most consequential election of our lifetimes. Just so hopefully this will be straightened out in time.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Because
but also
vote.
But it's important to do your homework and make sure that you meet the requirements and you are registered to vote.
Of course.
So do your homework now. It's 53 days. The clock is ticking.
Every couple of months, I just run my name through the logs to make sure that I'm still on the rolls, because sometimes I've heard that people have been purged from the rolls.
Well, look at Texas. They purged.
So you got to make sure.
But keep in mind, in Texas, 990,000 of them were because of decease or they moved out of state, and the other 4% were because of errors in records. So, but you still have to check.
Yes.
Yeah. Still check. Yeah.
Next, let's square up trans rights. Transgender New Hampshire teens can play sports while challenging ban. A federal judge ruled that two transgender girls, Parker Terrell, 15, and Iris Turmel, 14, from New Hampshire, can continue playing on girls' school sports teams, while they challenge a new law banning them from doing so. U.S. District Court Chief Judge Landra McCafferty issued a preliminary injunction in favor of these trans girls who sued to overturn the Fairness in Women's Sports Act signed by Republican Governor Chris Sununu in July. McCafferty found the girls likely to win their case, saying they demonstrated a likelihood of irreparable harm without the injunction. She wrote, quote, "There is no indication in the record that plaintiffs' participation in school sports has caused the state or anyone else the slightest modicum of harm," end quote. The case marks part of a growing national debate on transgender rights. Sununu had argued that law ensures fairness and safety in women's sports, a view shared by other Republican-controlled states that have enacted similar bans. However, the lawsuit contends that the ban violates constitutional and federal protections by discriminating against the girls based on their gender identity. Michael Garrity, a spokesperson for the New Hampshire Attorney General's office, said the state is reviewing the ruling and considering the legal options to maintain its commitment to student welfare. The court case will likely go to trial after December when Turmel plans to join her school's winter track team. It almost seems as if like the conservatives are more focused on the transgender side of things and like schools, like the school sports and women, trans girls and trans women in girl sports. I just feel as if like it's kind of just like a niche, like something that they really need to take their eyes off of and like just continue on with their day. Because it's like, so like, why are you so obsessed with the trans women and women's sports, especially in the schools and like, you know, high school?
I needed them to keep that same energy they have up against transgender on school shootings. Keep that same energy. Keep that same energy you have to fight for their rights, fight for the lives of all students, because they're going to school having to do school shooting drills. That should be what I focus on, not whether these kids can play in sports or not. Like, and you're an adult, so like, why are we? Like, why is it so that important to you that you have to take this up as a cause when there are more pressing issues? Like school nutrition, seatbelts on school buses, like things like that can be something that you can take up. But kids playing sports,
you're so right. And the irony, I was thinking the same thing, and it's like to be like, no, it's for safety, and you're like, how could you can't just say safety and then be like, but minus all the school shootings and like not, you know, people who go home hungry and like you know don't have like how could you kind of even wrap your head around the kind of logic behind here? Also, most studies show very clearly most studies show very little evidence, right, that hormones are actually changing competitive sports in any kind of meaningful way. That the most likely kind of thing that will change or determine whether one competes better in sports is how rich your parents are, right? Like that's actually the kind of determining factor, because it is, if you got money, right, you get more coaches and more trainings and more workshops and that's usually the kind of, you know, so the idea that they can control ideas of safety, ideas of equity in this kind of way, this is transphobia and just kind of, you know, window dressing it to mean something else, but who are we kidding?
I'd love to see what the girls that are participating in these sports think, minus without their parents in the room, you know, safely. But I mean, I would love to talk to those girls because I would love to sit there and say, okay, at 14 and 15, some of the girls on field hockey teams and softball teams have a lot more brute force than a lot of 14 and 15-year-old boys I've seen, you know? So I don't know if it's not a level playing field. It's not about size anymore in some sports. It's about talent. So I'd love to talk to the girls individually as a collective and not with the parents, because the parents will pollute the answers.
Well, and Sununu Jr. is just as big a schmuck as his father was. Live free or die, New Hampshire. Let's go for the latter, shall we?
Live.
Next, let's queer up gay culture. Scholastic Books releases guide for supporting LGBTQ youth. Scholastic has released its 2024 Read with Pride Guide, urging teachers to include LGBTQ children's books in their curricula. The guide emphasizes that educators, whether they realize it or not, already interact with queer children in their classrooms. It encourages them to disrupt the status quo by offering literature that challenges conventional ideas of gender and sexuality. The guide provides book recommendations for readers as young as preschoolers, including titles such as My Moms Love Me and You Are Loved, which highlight same-sex families. For older children, books such as Melissa and Moonflower feature trans and non-binary characters. Scholastic asserts that these stories help affirm children's identities and positively impact mental health. The guide also promotes resources such as the Trevor Project, which supports queer youth, claiming that affirming gender identities can help prevent suicide. Despite debates over the impact of social transitions on children's mental health, Scholastic maintains that diverse literature can have life-changing effects on young readers, offering them authentic representation and validation. Bravo, Scholastic Books! I love this latest example of publishers, librarians, and educators standing up for students and standing up to parents.
And Moms Against Liberty.
Lavatories.
I want to just a shout out to all these great organizations. Scholastic, Pen America, that is killing it, that is really the ones taking on the book bans, and all these great cultural institutions, and that, like, some of them, like, real, even locally, Books and Books Foundation in Miami has been, they started a foundation just to help get people books, right? I mean, that is, people are really answering the call in the absence of all of this. Also, Scholastic, like when I was a kid, Scholastic book fairs were my favorite day of the year, right?
Yes.
I would look forward to that like crazy.
Yeah, Magic School Bus was one. That was one of my favorite books. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that we provide young people with enough information to be able to make informed decisions about themselves. And I mean, books are one of the ways to learning. When I was growing up, there was a gay bookstore called Lambda Rising in DC. And I cried when it closed down. But it was around, and I remember buying a book, scared as hell, but buying a book that was focusing on LGBT teenagers, and having that book really let me know that I wasn't, alone. There was nothing wrong with me. And I'm like, imagine someone 13 and 14, hopefully not Lambda Rising, it was scandalous then, but can find a book that can meet their needs. And also maybe they have a friend who may not be gay or lesbian, transgender, and may want to support their friends, because books not only just educate the people who are part of the community, it also educates those of them who are around them. So I think it's important to definitely provide an array of books for people to learn, including their parents.
All need an education.
Yes.
I even was like, when I was growing up as well, like the Scholastic Book Fair was my favorite. And it was like, you're kind of like a cool kid if you got money to go to the Scholastic Book Fair to get the erasers, the colorful erasers, the colorful pens.
Your Lisa Frank stickers.
And so like
colorful.
Getting like a gay book, like it's like, oh my gosh, like who's gonna get one of those? Like it's gonna be a really cool person.
Well,
so
the important thing with Scholastic books, because I mean, Greg, you and I are not that
Well,
far
they were
apart.
stone tablets when I was
But I mean, I just turned 60 and I can remember Scholastic book fairs. And even when gay was not a topic or even a subject, and it was still under the table and everything, there are a lot of books in history that when you look back on them, suddenly it's like, okay, we know that one's gay, we know that one's gay. I mean, even Sesame Street, Bert and Ernie, please.
They're roommates, no.
And Sesame Street was big when I was going to Scholastic. So I mean, what's important is that Scholastic isn't looking at their audience as what is the limits of you. It's showing you the world and the reality of that world, and it's representing everybody, language issues, ethnic backgrounds, the whole bit. So if they can go into Spanish and all kinds of languages, if they can talk about people of color, disabilities, it's only natural that they include LGBTQ. You know, everybody needs to be represented fairly and equally in the opportunities. So I applaud, Scholastic for having the backbone like so many others haven't, and going out there and saying this is who we are. So thank you, Scholastic.
All right, next we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International service at 10:30 a.m.
That is today's news for the queer community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories to bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of HOTspots magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Julio Capo, and on behalf of these LGBTQ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, thank you, Christopher Barnhill, Buddy Frey, Nico Cales, and Gregg Shapiro. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. We remind you, the presidential election is just 53 days away. Stand up for equality, for rights, and for representation. Make sure you're registered and ready to cast your ballot. Let's make history. Let's vote for a better future.